Okay, hello there. We're gonna have this piece of ash firewood that we cut down, and we want to cut it into some boards. I got my Husqvarna 55 here, ready to go. I want to cut this into some 2x6s. I'm going to walk you through that process and see how she goes. So we cut it down in the summer and put some tar here on the ends to so it wouldn't crack. So that kept it good from cracking. And so what we're going to do first is we first want to cut off the two ends, nice square and plumb, right about there or so, because we don't need that long of a board. And what you'll see is cutting these into boards takes a lot of work when we're cutting lengthwise down the wood. So we're just going to go and chop those ends off. Okay, so we got some nice flat cut off ends. You'll see it was a little bit rough here and there and it got stuck, and I'll explain that in a while. It's because I modified my chain cutters a bit for the cut that we're going to make down the length. Now that the wood is much smaller, it's going to be much better. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the end of our wood on both ends, in order to make some good 2x6s out of this wood. So here we are at the end of the wood. I'm going to get your marker or another one, and you want to go right on the center of the wood. You want to have it nice and level, best you can. Center of the wood. And let's make a line. Okay, so there I've made my line in the center of the log. Let's do the same thing on the other side. It's a good thing to note that the log is relatively balanced. We don't want it to move it around during this part of the process. Again, right on that center of the line. Good. So now we got it the one way, so now let's use the knot and put the nice and level square the other way, this side, and then we'll go do the other side. Do the same thing. Get it nice and square on there, right down the center there. All right, okay. And now we're looking good. And now we want to look at the, let's see, so now I want to go about 5 inches across. Okay, another good little hint is we want to take all the bark off. For a chainsaw, one way to make it go dull fast is by eating through bark. Bark often has sand and little stones in it, so we're going to do the best we can and take the bark off as much as we can. See, the bugs have all been liking this bark. Making their homes underneath there. I wonder, you know, the other one we took inside.
Want me to end it?
I wonder if that helps it.
Want me to end it, Dad?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so we took off as much bark as we could. We got pretty much all the bark off, just a little piece here that's left on there, and that's very well. That's okay. We'll definitely get on there. But the next thing we need to do is we need to rip the chain, and ripping the chain is cutting the wood in the opposite direction we normally cut. You'll see how quickly I cut the wood in a cross-cut fashion. It was really quick and fast. However, when we do the ripping cut down the length, because we're going across all the different grains, it's a lot harder for the chainsaw. And so one of the modifications I did to my chainsaw, and you'll see it here, is on the tops of the cutters, I've removed the top plate every second set. So that set, I left this one I removed the top plate, this one here. And the reason for that is during the ripping of the chain, you're constantly chewing through wood. So the wood is cutting wood, and that's a waste. So by removing some of the cutters, we're actually making it more efficient, and it'll be actually a faster cut for the chain. There's less chips to go through. Also, when I sharpened this chain, it was a regular chain sharpening, but I changed the angle from the original 25 degrees to 22 degrees, so it's more of a blunt end. Now typically you would like to go to 10 degrees, but because I had a regular chain, I only went to 22 degrees, so I wouldn't lose too much of the cutter, and it would take too much time. And I want to revert to using this chain for regular cutting wood afterwards, once I'm done cutting this little dog here.
It's going.
Okay, so now you might be wondering, how do we cut this wood with a chainsaw? Well, we have this special tool that we got here that's going to be able to help us to cut a nice straight piece of wood. And we actually have a nice piece of ash here that has to be nice and straight, nice and straight, and we're going to use that to guide the chainsaw to cut a nice straight line along here. This is almost, you can call it cheating, but it works very well, and that's what allows us to do what we're going to do. So the key thing that we need to do is we need to fixture this piece of wood to the log to make sure it's in line with our spot on both ends, to make sure we got a good thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take some of these pieces of log, these boards that we've had, and we're going to make sure they're nice and parallel up there. And we're going to screw them to the end of both logs. And then once we have them screwed in, then we can screw this top log onto here. So we have to make sure that it's nice and square with the line that we're planning to cut. That's the critical thing. Okay, so we're going to raise this up a little bit. So first I'm going to take this wood off, screw this in a little bit higher so that that's the long piece of 2x6 on the top does not touch the actual wood. So let's put that all together now. Okay, so we got our log, just 2 screws, simple. This wood is nice and parallel to our line here that we're going to cut. And this top plate here is above the surface of the log so that our board that's going to be on top does not get gets in line. There's no interference with the actual board. So once we have that in place, we'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll get that board mounted on top of here. Okay? So that's the next thing. Once again, want to make sure that that line is square to that. You can see why at the beginning it's important that we drew our lines, didn't touch nothing, and did the same, and we did it level on both sides. That way we're connecting both sides to both sides equally. Next, now that it's parallel, we'll be able to put our top plate on, and then we'll make sure that our chainsaw will be cutting right along that line, but on that side of the line. So that'll be the next step, is to put our 2x6 on top and to line it left to right to make sure it's in line with that cut. Okay, let's go. So the first thing we're going to do is going to mount our chainsaw in here. We want to get it up as close as we can. The distance from here to here is what we'll be able to cut into the wood, but we also have the height of this board that we have to go through as well. So we'll just tighten this up here. See, it's 3-point contact. I usually just tighten the things with the little screws with the short long end like this, and then once I have that, then I give it a good turn on this end. You don't want to tighten too much because you could easily crack this casing, but you want it stiff enough so if everyone gets at least 2 turns at it, you should be good. Let's check that one. Okay, here we go. Now what you can see is we can go like so to cut it. Okay, so there we're lined up. We want to be on the outside of that line. So right about there, so that's good. I'm going to give it a little bit of wiggle room, and we know we can mount the wood at that spot onto the board. Got that. You can just hold that there. Okay. Just 1 screw is necessary. Not stable as the other one, eh? Okay. Now it's screwed in. Let's just double check. Okay. Gives a little bit of room for the curve to go. Okay. Now let's go to the other side. Okay, so add that over to there. And we're talking a little bit like that there.